Aftercare After Dark is intended for mature audiences. If you're under the age of 18, we would ask you to leave this broadcast immediately and patiently await your formal invite to the grown folks table. We sometimes discuss topics that can be triggering for some. Please refer to the show's notes for episode-specific trigger warnings and resources. Thank you for listening.
Okay. So for tonight's episode, we're going to be talking about Miss Yolanda's case study. Why do we do these things? We do it so that we can go over our experiences and share our experiences. And you'll notice in our sharing of these experiences that there are patterns. And you may or may not have encountered some of those patterns in your life and in your life currently or in the past. So, Miss Yolanda, tell us about your subject. How old is he? Sorry.
40? Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
Tell us about your subject. What gender was he, she, or they? How old were they? And take it down from here.
Okay, so it was Dmitri, 42 years old, uh, custody split 50-50 with his ex-spouse. They had been divorced for 3 years. Um, Lovely 8-year-old that I never met, but um, what else? Computer programmer. And we met on OkCupid and matched up. And my profile tells you, like, ask me out. Like that's the easiest way to get there. So like I think 48 hours after we started chatting, we were out on a date. We had pho. That's what we had. We had pho. And in Beacon. So yeah, we met halfway between his and mine. And yeah, lovely, funny, uh big personality, like, paid attention. Uh the back and forth, there was banter, there was flirting. I don't connect quickly with that many people, but he was my type of nerd. He was my type of nerd. We talked about one of the things that we first talked about was our sticking points with each other. His hesitation was the non-monogamy status. He labeled himself as monogamous. I put myself down as non-monogamous. That's what I am. And he asked me my reasons why, and I told him. I was like, I'm new to dating. This is my first time intentionally doing this. It's a project, it's time bound. I want to keep doing this. I don't want to, you know, um, settle down too quickly, or make choices inconsec. Uh, I don't want to make choices, spontaneously. I want to see where things shake out after a year. And the more I think about it, there are things that I don't feel, you know, particularly tied to in relationships. I don't get jealous. It's not my thing. I don't want to own anyone, and I don't want anybody to own me. So coming from that mind frame, choosing non-monogamy is what's going to work for me. He expressed, I don't think he felt, but he expressed that, cool. Like, I'm glad that you're not lying about it, that this is where we're starting from. And we like, I didn't know the terms for what we were doing on the first date, but we were like negotiating. We were negotiating our style. He expressed interest in a DS relationship. He said that normally, as a he was a dom, but he was open to trying something else. And I was like, positionally, I've been a bottom, but I would love to, try and lead and see where that goes. That went in fits and starts because we didn't know what we were doing. So he wasn't sure if he just wanted it in the bedroom or if he wanted a more expansive view of it. We ended up somewhere in between. When we were in his house, we ended up playing out that dynamic. When we were out and about, he was very much the man, but in a lovely way. We did a lot of activities, things that I like to do, because he said he hated hiking. I said, you'll like hiking with me. He did like hiking with me. I'm interesting. We went to different restaurants, different kinds of restaurants he likes to eat. Everything. um, we went to the movies. Um, and then we had our first gym date. And that's where I think we started settling into a relational model. This whole thing lasted for 7 weeks, but we went to a spin class, and I am an adrenaline junkie. I love my endorphins. I love working out. So we would do the spin class. We'd hit some weights. He didn't lift, so I taught him how to throw the medicine because he was like, I don't like lifting. I was like, well, you can get your weight training in without lifting. So I took him over to the medicine ball. We did wall ball. We did kettlebell swings and different funner, more kinetic things with weights than just standing there pumping iron. So he expressed interest in a couple of machines, and I showed him how to use them and what to do. So that was great.
Were you intimate with him at this point? Or were you at least engaging in intimate
we were
slash sexual activities
we
by then?
were, but we hadn't done anything that we hadn't done anything past second base by this point. But when we went to the gym, we went to his house afterwards, and then we got into some fun. We got into some mess. We never had traditional PIV sex. And if you can throw up PIV up there as what that is. We never did that. He said it wasn't his thing. I said it wasn't a requirement for me because it's not. And he wasn't. There's a thing about men over 40, so it takes a little longer for some of them. And so he said eventually we'll get there, but like right now I would rather not. And I said, cool, same. Same.
So fast forward to the gym. What about that encounter led you to say that you feel that that's when things started going astray or Ari?
Oh, that's not well,
right.
Wait, cut that. So it was the second gym date. First gym date we just went through, and he flashed this thing at the security thing, his pass, and we went upstairs. But I got to the gym the second time before him, and I got held up at the front desk. And he ended up talking to the woman behind the counter, and he said, just go upstairs, I'll deal with it, whatever. And he told me that me coming to the gym with him was not a thing because his membership included unlimited guest passes. That's what he told me. That wasn't the truth. It didn't sound like the truth at the time. I just stored it as a little thing. And we went about our business. Yeah. So then we settled into a routine, like Monday nights and Wednesday nights were the classes. And for a couple of weeks, that's what we did. Gym
For
dates.
spin class?
Yeah.
Okay. Monday and Wednesday nights for spin classes.
Spin class, little weights, and then the hot tub. The hot tub. Which was always fun because he liked the attention that he got by walking around the gym with me. Like all of these middle-aged men are and I'm like, I'm a middle-aged woman, you don't know this, but I am. So they're right back at you, right? But he liked the attention. He's a bigger guy. I loved every bit of his body. Like I didn't know because I've never been with someone who was larger. Might be my thing now. I have my eyes out for the bears. I'm looking for the bears.
We like the big boys.
Yes. Could strong, could throw me over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. And I am a dense person. I'm very muscular. So I'm not, big, but I'm heavy. I'm heavier. I've had very fit men try it and fail and fail miserably. And I'm like, I told you I'm heavier than I look. Like,
Mhm.
so
It's
I
fun.
wasn't being, like, yeah, I wasn't lying to you. I wasn't trying to be cute, like, haha, I'm bigger. No, I really am heavier than I look. And yeah, so when he put me over his shoulder like I was nothing, I was like, I like that. Like that was like like I realized I'm a bit of an like a friend of mine's gonna watch this, like a bit of an adrenaline junkie. I am an adrenaline junkie. I like sensations, especially, like quick ones, right? Roller coasters send me over the edge. And that was the feeling. It was like that dip from the roller coaster because I went up so fast. So yeah, so he called me tiny. He called me tiny. He's like, you're so tiny.
That's cute.
It was so cute. He's like, you're so tiny. I was like, okay. Tell that to the corset strings back. um, so yeah, so highlights. Uh, our sexual activity was very satisfying for the both of us. It's important that, like, some doms are not that concerned with their subs and their pleasure. I am. I very much am. So it's important to me that they're enjoying the experience. I thoroughly enjoyed it myself. When I say he liked to eat, I mean he liked to eat, and all of it for hours. And it was amazing because I'm also a person who is slow to arousal. So our sex life was good. It was good, and we were experimenting. Where we were talking about doing different things, so that was great. You talked about your experience with the lack of patience that George had. Dmitri was different. He he dressed me. He put me in my corset because I told him it is a feeling that I like and a look that I like. And he laced me up and didn't know what he was doing, but took the time to figure it out and get it precise. It took about 15 minutes. And I've never felt sexier in my entire life than I did, like just having that attention paid to me and the care and the wanting to get it right. And he went and got a mirror. Like he ran and got the full length mirror from upstairs, came downstairs and wanted me to inspect his work. Like it took pride in it. And that was just a singularly like great experience because I've never had something like that. I've never had somebody trust me because listen, the corsets are new and they should have been part of my life forever. They should have been here
I
forever.
like that one. I like that one.
Yes.
You
So
should pack that and bring that with you next month.
next month we're talking about like 3 weeks now. I'm
It's
so
still
excited.
next month.
Yes. So one of the shocks of my life and the first stumbling block in our relationship was the state of his house. Clutter is a trigger for me. I grew up in chaos and it reminded me of that. Clutter, uh, just dirt in general. I did not realize that I have a thing about neatness. I have a thing about cleanliness. When I say my house is a mess, it means I didn't sweep the floor in 2 days. Like, but everything has its place. Everything is where it's supposed to be. I might have not done the laundry for a month, but like everything is where it's supposed to be. Books are on shelves, laundry baskets staring at me, calling me all types of names to make me feel bad about myself. But the clothes are in the basket. Things are where they're supposed to be. So when I feel un at ease when my housework isn't 100%, right? So the state of his house when he said he cleaned it for me before I got there was a shock. It was a shock. But we had, like we talked about our missteps in relationships before, and I told him mine was kind of sucking it up all the time, being unhappy and not voicing, my displeasure or things like that.
Discomfort.
Discomfort, saying like, it is what it is, just deal with it. But this was visceral. It was like I wanted to run. It kind of hurt me. I was honest. I was like, I can't be comfortable here. I can't relax here. I keep looking at cat food on the floor, like,
Oh,
yeah, yes, yes. I was triggered. I was triggered. There was, he had a dog and a cat, both lovely creatures, but messy, and things weren't tidy. And I was like, and he felt a little bad, and I said, like, we can clean. We can clean. That could be our thing. Number one, we'll clean. And I made a game out of it. I made a game out of it, and he liked playing the game. And like, it was okay. It was okay. He said he didn't know how to, like, his favorite thing in the world was steak. He would have steak 4 times a week if if he could afford it. And I said, I'll teach you how to make steak. Save you 30-40 bucks per steak. And I did. I taught him. I was like, this is the easiest recipe. Like, there are fancy preparations for steak, but what steak needs is salt, pepper, oil, and garlic. That's what it needs. And proper temperature, proper sear, and you'll have a lovely steak every time. So I taught him my method for making steaks, and he was like, "Oh my god, this is delicious. This is like restaurant." And it's like, but that's exactly what they do at the restaurant. It is. That's what they do. It's nothing. It's nothing over the top. Sometimes they do the fancy butters, and I showed him how to make the fancy butter, and I was like, yeah, that's it. He's like, so you take the dried herbs and you roll it, and I was like, yes, that's all you do. He's like, and this is my fancy butter that I'm paying an extra $5 for, and I was like, that's exactly what it is. So yeah, so we were cooking together. He introduced me to my favorite obsession show. Because we're both sci-fi nerds. And it was Lower Decks. I hadn't seen it. I'd heard great things about Lower Decks, but I recommend any military personnel to watch Lower Decks. Even if you're not into Star Trek, watch Lower Decks. It's a cartoon. But if you want to understand what it's like to serve, especially as an enlisted person, a lower ranked enlisted person, it reminded me that, like I started from the bottom and made it to the middle. But I started from the bottom, and Lower Decks is about those personnel. Like, you are either one of the four main characters or a combination of two of them, and you have served with everybody on that crew. There's about 15 characters there, and you have, like, you can call out. You can be like, oh, I know that one. I know that one. They have, like, very distinct personality styles, and it is hilarious. And it is about being, like, in the service. It's a very, like, I think, veteran friendly show. Back to the case in point. So things were going along swimmily. We were getting along. We had little conflicts, but we resolved them. We talked about things. We made games out of things. Um, I He asked me for a day that would be our day, right?
right.
And I said, yeah. He's like, can I have Tuesday? Because he broke out his schedule, and
Mm-hmm.
the 50-50, so he had, like, orange and blue he was free, orange he was with his daughter. So he always had Tuesdays. I think he always had Tuesday nights, and he had every other Saturday,
Right.
uh where he was free. And he was like, can I have those Saturday nights? I was like, sure, you can.
Right.
I like spending time with you. I look forward to this. Is the first relationship I've ever had where I attached to a person. Oh, a little aside. While we were having one of our fun times, I blurted out, I love you. And I didn't
Oh.
take it back. I didn't take it back. I know, I blurted it out. The first thing I wanted to, like, I was mortified. I was mortified. And I was like, yes, he heard that. Even though he had earmuffs on. Like, he didn't have earmuffs on, but my thighs. Okay, like, planted on either side of his head. But yeah, like, yeah, I blurted it out. Was to My instinct was to crawl up and die. I'm like, we don't do this. We don't, no. And I have never. I have never, in the throes of passion, been like, I love you to anyone. I've barely loved anyone. So like, it's like, so it was a feeling. I let it pass. We didn't say anything, thank God. He called me out. We didn't say anything, but I let it sit for a couple of days, and I was like, I'm not taking it back because I might have meant it.
What
I might have meant it.
so timeline wise, do you think this was what, week 5, week 6?
Week 5.5. I can tell you it was like it was week 5.5. It was week 5.5. I remember it clearly because I was mortified. I was mortified. I had an out of body experience. And I was like, well, but the moment passed. I let it lie. I didn't deny it. I didn't because honestly, like I surprised myself. I don't like surprises, and I surprised myself. So and I was like momentary embarrassment, and then I thought about it, and I was like, well, like it's not like you didn't mean it.
So,
So like, well, we let it lie. And he was very gracious and never said anything about it. And
aw.
yeah. So like, that happened. That was the first.
I would have
I've never.
I would have said something about it. I would have been like rubbing salt in some wounds. I'd be like, so you love me, huh?
You sadist. You sadist.
So
Look at you.
you love me, huh? But it's also the exhibitionist. It's like I want to know for sure. Okay, so first red flag was the gym, but
Yes.
it's more like the red flag of the unease, and then like the clutter, the house situation wasn't
Mhm.
there. But like at no point has anything been a deal breaker.
No.
Okay,
And I
so
thought we
let's
were, like we were negotiating towards he expressed, I want you to be comfortable. And if this is a condition in which you want to be comfortable, I'm going to make sure that, things are clean when I'm here, when you're here. And that's great. I did a work day over at his house. So we did co-working together,
okay.
which was great. Yeah, like I could work. I work from home, so I just packed up the laptop and my manuals, and we worked, and was able to work. Like I was like I really do need to put in 5 hours of work. The rest we can play. But I do need to put in a work day. If I spent the night. That was also another first. I have
Oh,
outside of my marriage, I had never spent the night with anyone.
wow. This guy, you pulled out the stops for this guy.
I liked him. I liked him a lot. It was
You
I
loved him. You told him so.
I know.
It's
Gonna
okay.
be a dick. Are you gonna be a dick about this? I did. I did. I didn't take
No,
it
no.
back.
There's no shame in that.
I'm not ashamed at all. Like as I said before, like this was the first relationship I had been in where I wasn't just going along, where I wasn't wondering why I was like, like I would have these moments, during my other long term things where like I was like, I don't, why am I here? I was affirmatively there. I liked him. If I had a thought while I was busy and we were apart, I would write it down, and we liked talking to each other. We could discuss just about anything. He had these wild theories about DC comics, and so like we would, like we talk about just about everything. We talked a lot about sex and our temperaments and what we were learning about our temperaments from each other. Um, yeah, so like we were intimate physically, but we were also intimate emotionally and intellectually. And I've never had all three things and enjoyed all three things. I was having a ball, even though there was this conflict. There were a couple of questions um, about he kept asking about the non-monogamy thing, and it was like he
So when
wouldn't
you say he
ask.
kept asking, what would he ask?
He'd be like, well, you're spending a lot of time here, am I keeping you from things?
Oh,
Or if I wasn't available at night, we were doing the show by now, like he wanted to know, like whether I was dating and not tell, because I told him I would tell if I had a date or if I had a prospect, I would let him know. He wanted to know. He didn't want
Mhm.
to know details, but he wanted to know if I was going to be seeing someone else. And I told him I would. But every time I couldn't, like if he asked me for some time and I couldn't be there for whatever particular reason, the assumption was that I was on a date, which it wasn't. I wasn't, whatever. And I think the last time we talked about it, I said, Lev, I would have never met you if I wasn't doing this the way that I was doing it, because I was seeing someone else when I met Lev. like, um, and like they overlap by a couple of weeks. So I was like, I would have never met you if I wasn't doing it this way. If there is a change in my status, if I am seeing someone else or if I'm seeking someone else, I will let you know. That was my last on that, and he didn't bring it up again. But it had come up during the weeks that we were together. It did come up more than once. He wanted to know what my activities were, and I felt unease around that. He never, as as blunt as we were about almost everything else, he came at that from his side. He was tiptoeing around talking about the subject. I think his previous relationship, he had listen, tell me about your ex. Every time I'm gonna ask you about your ex, I'm gonna ask you to keep telling me about your ex. You know why? Because the trash comes out. Your trash behavior comes out. Because he's like, all she did was cheat on me. I felt betrayed. This, the next thing, whatever, whatever. By the fifth time he told that story, they had started in an open relationship. She was, they were open with each other.
Mhm. Uh, whose idea was it to be open?
It was
That's what
her
I want to know.
idea. It was her idea to be open. They started in an open relationship. When they got married, they made the decision to close it, but I'm not even sure that's the truth. I don't think that's the truth. I think he met someone, liked them, didn't like the dynamic, you know, it changed because their relationship status changed. But like if you are an open woman, like you're gonna stay an open woman. Yeah, I don't really think that changes. I don't really think that changes. Some people are monogamous by design, and some people are not monogamous by design. And when they met, she was open. Like he knew this. He knew this. And I'm wondering if like his little remarks were trying to move me off of my temperament, which isn't going to change. Like it's not going to change. I Number one is because like this is my project, this is what I'm doing. But two, I think I'm not monogamous. I don't think I mean, my behavior has been, but that's because I was doing what everybody else was doing, not doing what I wanted to do. And this is what I want to do. This is my mind frame. When I think about how I want the rest of my life to be, when I fantasize, I'm like, there are more people in it than just me and some dude. Like, like that's not my end game.
It's good. It's okay.
But if I meet the
It's
right woman, if I meet the right woman, that could be it. So yeah, we're rolling into the end game.
yep. Let's talk about how things start falling apart. The
Um,
uh, the lead up to the implosion.
he asked me for a whole weekend. It was the last whole weekend that he was going to have before his daughter's winter break. He had her for the entirety of the winter break. He wasn't going to be able to see me for 3 weeks. And I said, sure. He said, well, what do you want to do this weekend? And I said, I have all of these points. Let me treat you to a fancy room in like not too far away, not a huge road trip, because traveling with someone for the first time, that's stressful. And it's particularly stressful for me. It brought up especially how we were going to get there. We had an hour and a half drive. Um, he drove an electric vehicle, so it made sense to take my car. I have a sensitivity about being in other people's cars and other people being in my car. Like it is triggering for me. Um, I didn't know if I could do it. Like, so we were trying to figure out how to get there. He said, like if I drive, does that make it feel better? And I said, I don't know, because I've never had anybody like other than my daughter in my car. Like, like family, my daughter, that's it. And I'm the only person who's ever driven my car, like ever. Like, oh no, I taught my niece how to drive. But like other than that, like, like I drive my car, and I've had my car for 10 years. So like that's how much anxiety I have about it. Yeah, like I don't like getting in other people's cars, and I I don't let anybody in my car, right? But I liked him that much. I did. And I said, you know what? We're gonna work through this discomfort. I trust this man. I don't think he's going to hurt me. Um
Ah,
uh
that just made
yeah,
it worse.
it all I forgot to tell you that part. Yeah, it does make it
That
worse.
just
Yeah, like
that just made it worse.
yes, I don't think he's going to hurt me. Um Everything about art, like very few surprises. We have regular communication. Things haven't, like the red flags or the caution flags that came up. I felt like we were working through some things and that they were resolved, right?
Mhm.
There was the orange's red flag about the non-monogamy that kept coming up, like, so like pattern seeking, right? That's what I'm doing in my observations. But he hasn't acted out of character. Temperament hasn't changed. Like I haven't. I've seen him upset, but not like out of control,
Violent.
angry or violent or anything else like that. So like I'm like, this man is not going to hurt me. He's a gentleman. He cares about me. I care about him. We're going to be fine. And it's only an hour and a half. And I've got. I'm a Marine. I'm prepared. Let's just say that. So like, in case, like just in case. So yeah. So we get to the hotel, and that's when things start falling apart. It was a fancy, fancy hotel because I'm a fancy, fancy lady, and I collect points. I used to travel for work, and I have so many points. So when we got to the desk, it was hello ambassador. Like I have that status, the titanium platinum elite with diamonds on top, like like the top tier of whatever. So I have the upgrade. So I pay for a regular room, but I get the upgrade to the suite. Like so I've got a tub in there and a shower and a little foyer, and there's champagne and chocolate waiting. Like fancy. Okay, so fancy, fancy. And he said,
Can you
"Oh,
take me on a hotel getaway?
I told you not to, like, like I was like, damn it, she already booked the whole, like when I was like, she
That's
booked the
fine. We
hotel.
still
I
got
told,
Friday. We got Thursday. We got Thursday access activity. We got Friday free. Saturday is occupied. Sunday,
yeah,
I've got something for you on Sunday. But anyways, go ahead.
yes. So, yeah, so like traveling with me, I like, listen, I will fly economy. I will fly economy. I will have my carry on for a week. I don't have to fly fancy. But my hotel has to be fancy. Like I'm a fancy hotel lady. So like I think it threw him. He's like, oh, I travel budget because we were talking about traveling to Korea. Um, uh, Relatively shortly after that, like 2 months after that, in February. Now, um, so um, he was thrown off by the room, and then he started acting really, really strange. Um,
Wait, he was thrown off. He was thrown off
he
by
was
the room.
he was thrown off by the fanciness of it.
Okay.
Now, mind you, I'm not a rich lady, but I know how to stack points. I know the right cards to get. I save my, like I'm very good with managing money. I'm very, very good with
Right.
managing money. He
But
makes
like
twice as much
he
as I
knows what
do.
you drive. He knows what you drive, and he's seen where you lived. He may not have stayed over, but he's seen where you
Yes,
lived.
yes.
Okay. Okay.
So, and we like, like his, well, my house is a little nicer than his house, but like not like, leaps and bounds nicer. Like,
Okay. Interesting.
like,
So
yeah, we're on,
maybe he's
huh?
just like never experienced what treating yourself looked
I
like.
don't think so.
Maybe.
and that goes into the like state of his house and everything else like that. Like I being divorced isn't good for some people. They've been taken care of their whole life, so they don't know how to do like basic things like, and I'm talking about men, don't know how to do basic things like, like clean house and do laundry and put things away organizationally. And, you know, that's woman's work. And I'm 100% sure that was his woman's work, right? He's never done that. Um,
Yep.
so, so I organized this trip and like, it started off great. We went out to a restaurant. Since I, like it was my treat, but he didn't feel comfortable, and I'm glad he didn't because I have this thing about money. But like he was like, okay, you laid out for the hotel. I'm gonna take care of everything else. And we had planned an activity the next day, and we went to a fancy dinner. He doesn't drink, and I'm not a person that drinks alone really. Um, it's just like not my thing. So like I had water. But that night he said, have a cocktail. And I said, okay. And he said, what happens if you have two? It was like nothing. And I was like, the third one might send me off my rocker because I'm aged now and I don't drink like that anymore. He's like, okay, well, have three, right? And so like, like I had a couple of drinks, even though he doesn't drink. And we went back to the hotel. We had some fun time and then we went to sleep. And I made it very, very clear from the beginning of our relationship when I slept over for the very, very first time, do not disturb while I'm asleep, ever. If I am in some kind of altered state, do not disturb. Like, it freaks me out. It is a trigger. I have trauma in my past. Please don't. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, I was being fondled and I flipped out, jumped out of bed. I am a very light sleeper. I flipped out. I was angry and like speechless angry, and I could hurt you angry, so I like, left the room. And then you know, uh, came back
Where did you go?
to the gym. To the gym.
At 2 a.m.?
There's a gym. Yep. Yep.
And how
Came
long were you
back
gone for?
a little while, a couple hours. A couple
Okay.
hours. Calm down. Calm down. Uh, he was asleep. I went to sleep. I went back to sleep. Woke up to him crying on the side of the bed, and I'm thinking, okay, like like I've calmed down, but we need to talk about what happened. And he starts sobbing about his daughter and a hockey game, and I was like, again, thrown for a loop. I'm like, can we talk about the violation? Like, no, we're crying about missing his daughter's hockey game, which didn't make any sense to me. Incongruent, right? Like, you specifically asked me for this weekend. I've seen your schedule. I've seen you color block everything out. Like, like, why would you ask me for this weekend if you had an obligation to be someplace else? It doesn't make any sense. He gets on the phone, he talks to his daughter, or I assume his ex-wife and then his daughter. I don't know. He could have probably not been talking to anyone for all I know. It didn't make any sense to me. I'm standing there, I'm confused
And triggered.
and triggered and angry again. Like then all of a sudden I'm getting hot again, and I can't. I'm one of those people like I feel the emotion, but I cannot communicate during it. Like I'm not a person that yells or screams or does anything else. I get hot and then I'm kind of stunned for a while and I have to calm down and like whatever. So I'm like, I'm going to breakfast. Uh he left the room to, I don't know what he went to do, but like a couple hours later, I was in a space. I was like, let's talk. We met at the mall. The mall was across the street from the hotel. We met at the mall, and he is still crying about this hockey game, like tears. Like, and like, I'm like, you know what? I think you should go home. Like, and he's like, yeah, but like we only took one car here, and I was like, well, the Metro North is right there. You can get to your house. I think, we need to call it. So I like spent a day by myself in Westchester. Yeah, like I didn't talk to him, didn't text him. Um, when I got home, he called me the next day, I think, the next day, and we broke up. That was it. He broke up with me. He dumped me. He was like, I don't
So
think I'm
this was a
ready to have.
weekend.
Yeah,
So
this
this
was the
was a
weekend.
weekend. You
Yes,
checked in Friday night.
yes, and checked out
Um,
Sunday morning or
okay, so
Sunday.
he did this to you Friday night, Saturday morning, 2 a.m.
Yes,
Saturday morning. Okay,
yes,
you spent a whole Saturday by yourself after that,
yep.
and then checked out Sunday morning. Okay, and then he calls you Monday. Okay,
Monday.
interesting.
He's not ready for a relationship. The thing that he thought that was going to happen, like that he was going to pay so much attention to. That he said this. He was like, I lose myself in other people. Like I get enthralled, and then I lose track of my priorities. And as I said before, I was like, okay, my guy, oh my god, and like my last to him was, I was like, you blew this whole thing up. There are better ways of doing that. Don't ever violate someone's boundaries. You scared the living daylights out of me. Like, like don't ever use that. I don't think his intent was to do harm. I think it was to elicit a response so that like the relationship would be over. There's no coming back from that. And it's true. There is no coming back from that. There is no universe in which we're friends. There's no universe in which we try again. Like
Before you guys
he
went to
knew me well
bed,
enough.
before you guys went to bed Friday night, did you remind him again not to touch you?
No.
Okay.
But he
Okay,
had
because
known.
right, how long before that had he known? Like
Uh
days, weeks?
okay, so there was a half incident. Like, so I told him from I said like week two, I spent the night, right? And I had spent the night for a couple of weeks, and then we spent the day co-working. That was the day we spent co-working together, and
And that
we had
was
some fun
what
time.
week? What was that? Week 3, week 4?
Week four, yeah, like it was
Okay.
week four or week five, maybe. Like it's weird because we got into a relationship status rather quickly. Um, and yeah, so like I'd been seeing him regularly 2, 3 times a week for a while. Um,
Hmm.
but I had spent a full 2 nights over at his house. Um, and so the first almost incident where I had to warn him, like, do not, I mean, really do not. I put on my pajamas, I sleep in pajamas. I put in my pajamas and I lay down and I had a book open next to me, but I was drifting off. Like I was on my way to like being asleep. He had work to do late. So he was still up. He came to bed and gave me a nudge and I said, okay, if it looks like I'm asleep, that's what I mean. Like it sets like my I had a panic attack right there. Like it sets me off. I was drifting off. I was not completely awake, and I felt a hand. So like so he'd been warned, and he had
So that was
seen that
that
it.
was the first of okay, okay.
Yeah.
Damn.
So yeah.
No, that
So
makes it worse. That makes it worse because I'm over here like ready to make some dumb excuse like men don't actively listen. Like you know how like you listen and you file things away for a later time? I'm telling you that a lot of these guys don't know how to do that. And so I'm like, he probably forgot and snuck some try to fondle some student. Like, no, no,
he knew.
no, he saw that reaction from you.
And that's why he did it. That's why I say it was purposeful. Like he didn't do it because he was trying to get some. He did it to elicit a reaction. And he got one. But like, yeah, that was he sabotaged the relationship. Like, out of nowhere to me because we've been talking about how we felt about our state. Like we were not just letting. I never felt like either one of us was making assumptions. If we had a question, we asked. Like, if something, for whatever particular reason raised my eyebrow, I asked about it. Like, and I felt like he was doing the same, you know. So we talked things through. So like I did not see this coming. It was sudden and I was hurt. I was hurt. I was angry. I was dismayed and like had mixed feelings because I was like, wait a minute, like this was like the best relationship I've ever had.
Yeah.
I wanted to be there. I was happy to be there. There were qualities about this person that I really, really liked. I could talk to, like, I can geek
It's
out with
just
this person.
it just makes me angry just listening to, because we've talked about this over and over again, but it just makes me angry all over again. Because
Yes, so
yeah,
that's the case study. Lessons learned. Lessons learned. Like I was a single parent. I was a single parent. I managed my time. When I was dating, like people were aware that I had that I was a single parent and I had obligations, people knew. I never made plans for when I had something to do, and I never used my child as an excuse to manipulate time, manipulate emotions. Like, no one was ever going to meet my child. That became a point of contention with a potential, but like, it, it wasn't a thing. Every last person, male and female, that I have encountered in this last 6 months has used their child to manipulate. Now I understand why people don't want to date people with children. I get it. I get it. Because they have used their children as excuses for bad behavior, um, breaking plans, um,
manipulation.
not wanting to engage in relationship things. Like, you want all the benefits of a relationship, but you don't want to call it a relationship because you have a child to worry about. All of that nonsense.
Yeah, calling
Like,
that part, the piece where he was like, "Oh, I lose myself in relationships and I lose sight of priorities." What are you doing out here? What are you doing out? Because if you're out here on the dating streets, it's because you're making dating a priority. Yeah.
no, that's the thing. People aren't making dating a priority. It's a thing that they do.
Yeah.
They don't think about the ramifications of what they are doing. I was single for so long, partly because I had a young child, and you have to pay attention to young children. And if you're by yourself, you really have to pay attention to young children, like, and you have to prioritize them.
No,
If
that's
you are
yeah.
in a co-parenting space, you I saw the schedule. It was organized. There was something off about all of that. He wanted out, and there was a bet. And I told him, I was like, I'm grown. Has anything about my temperament or behavior signaled to you that I was going to act out if you ended things? I'm
Yeah, and it's
grown.
just like it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to ask you for a weekend away and then like
And we planned
because
it for like a week.
red
So you
red
knew.
red flags are red flags, but like people keep saying like red flags are not deal breakers. Those are called black flags.
Yeah.
Right? So red flags are just like caution flags. They're just things that raises your eyebrow and that you need to keep an eye on. But like the deal breaker becomes whether or not that can be changed. Like, hey, that's a red flag. That's fine, but let's talk about it and see if we can improve anything in there. And then like see if that, but no, it's crazy that there was no, even just me listening in, there was no indication leading up to that that would warrant such a violation. There was like nothing. There was nothing you did that deserved that kind of out.
Well, number one, no one deserves that kind of like
Or
I
that
want to put it out there. But like that we weren't in a state of conflict. We had a love, like we had a lovely evening.
Or like cold feet.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So it ended. That was that was
Yeah,
that
no.
night. I was licking my wounds. They're still kind like it, like it was my first, I like this. I like this state. I have had breakups before. I've been dumped before. The one I was seeing when I met Lev dumped me abruptly. I know exactly, and we're gonna do a case study on that individual. I got 10
Make a
hours of sleep.
note. Make a note for make a note for M to cut out Lev in that
Oh, I said,
in that
oh yeah,
comment.
oh yeah,
But cut out that name.
yeah.
But yeah, no, there's nothing you did that indicated that this was coming. Um, like even if he raised an eyebrow at the luxury of the room, um, honestly, from everything that you told me, it's just like straight up, it's just fearful avoidant behavior, right? Like things were getting real. Things was getting real. I don't know. I don't know why somebody would do that to you. Like to purposefully violate a boundary, knowing the visceral reaction it would garnish because he had seen it already. Like stuff like that, you don't just forget, you
And
know?
we had a very long talk about it. Like I was like, when I
No,
say,
that's
when I
that makes me
say,
angry. That makes me angry.
yeah,
That makes me
and
angry
there's no
for you.
coming back from that. And I'm like, like I am not temperamentally, I don't forgive. Like I'm not built that way. Um, yeah, and I was hurt. Like I shed tears. I caught feelings. Like part of me was relieved because I was part of this journey. Is like I didn't know if I could catch feelings. Like if I like really, I was married for 7 years, and my therapist asked me, she's like, "Did you miss him?" No, no, I did not. I
No,
said if
that's just
we had,
sad.
yeah, like I really didn't. Like like there were things, it wasn't all bad. It wasn't terrible, terrible like all of the time. We had some good years, but even if it had ended like like if it had ended well, like I I shouldn't have been there in the first place. And I knew
Mm,
this. I shouldn't have been there in the first place. And the other two long term relationships that I had on either end of that, I couldn't tell you why I was there. I couldn't tell you why I was doing what I was doing. It wasn't an affirmative thing. It wasn't, I want this person. I'm burning with desire. Like it wasn't that. I was just kind of there because my peers were married and my peers had boyfriends, and culturally you're supposed to work towards being someone's wife and having their children. That's what you're supposed to do. So that's what I was doing because I didn't know that there were other ways to be. Part of it's generational, part of it's cultural, and part of it is my makeup, right? So yeah, so like life in relationships was difficult for me, and life outside of relationships was not. Like so like I
hmm
kind of, I kind of went about my business for 17 years. Like, like just just did my own thing, and like ups and downs like everybody else, but having a relationship was not something that was a priority for me or something that I needed. I did not
Right,
feel less than whole not being with someone.
right.
This is like, like I'm in season. I want these things. I'm exploring. I'm excited, and I want it. I do want it. And I found something. If this had never happened, I could have seen this lasting for a very, very long time. Like if we maintained the routine, if we took a trip or two, uh uh every now and then, but like going to the gym and hanging out at his house, when he didn't have his daughter, like, and having lots of fun in and out of bed, like, like I could have done that forever.
Hmm.
Yeah, like I could, like, it was
No,
that.
Dimitri sounds like some shit I would pull. But I don't have a daughter to blame anything on. But like it just sounds like fearful avoidance. Things got real, things got real good. Um, and then he got that once he got that reaction out of you. and he saw that. I think he understood that there was no coming back from that. Or at least maybe that's giving him too much credit, but like I don't think he knew how to bounce back from that and how to work through
There's
that
no bouncing
conflict.
back from that. And
Yeah, there
I
wasn't.
think, I use my words like at the end, we did have a conversation. We said goodbye. I told him the impact. I told him that this devastated me. So, and that was it. Haven't heard from him, and I like, I people keep asking because I told people about him. I told my family about him. I was excited. I was like, oh, I've been dating for a while. Like people came and then they went, and I didn't say anything to like anybody about most of them. Like, because they was like, this isn't a permanent thing. It's not gonna last. Like knowing, seeing the writing on the wall, right? Um,
Hmm.
I thought this was gonna stick. I thought this was gonna last. But no, 7 weeks. 7 weeks is my max. That's how long things last. 7 weeks.
I have a 3 months rule. It takes you an average 3 months to know whether or not somebody is somebody that you want in your life. Takes me about a year to know if you're somebody I want in my life for the rest of my life.
And I
So,
wouldn't know. I wouldn't know any of it. I haven't gotten that far.
yeah, so, all right, everyone. So this was our little story about Dmitri. Do you have a Dmitri? Have you dated a Dmitri? Or are you a Dmitri? Let us know. Drop them in the comments, send us an email. I don't know where you're watching this from, but let us know. Do you have a Dmitri in your life?